see you there, BJ. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't see BJ cue me in. So if I sound like I missed something, I did. Hey, welcome to Point Black. I'm Adolphus Pruitt.
And I'm the Reverend Daryl Gray.
Daryl, did you see him cue me in?
Actually, I did, but since you're the one that brings us on, I did not want to step out of my lane.
So you just let him embarrass me.
I let him embarrass you.
Okay, DJ. BJ, I'm cueing you now. Hit the mic. Hey, you know what, Daryl? It's interesting that when it comes to natural disasters, especially storm damage and stuff, there are things that are applicable, even though it's happening in our city right now, in the city of St. Louis.
Yeah, man, major stuff.
The subject matter is applicable anywhere in the country, because anybody who's subject to the same thing are going to benefit from what we're going to talk about today. Absolutely. Easily. They're going to benefit from it.
Natural disaster.
Yeah, because, you know, and I was talking to one of our guests there, and they put it better than anyone can. It says there's 3 categories. Mm-hmm. Those insured.
Yes.
We got something for you today.
We got something for you.
Those who underinsured.
Underinsured, partially. Okay.
We got something for you.
Yes.
Those that are not insured, we don't have much for you as relates to what's going on now, but we're going to show you how you need to protect yourself in the future so you become one of the insured, not the underinsured. Is that the best way to put it?
No, I think that's right, because a lot of folk are, that's the conversation right now. Exactly. That is the conversation moving forward. You got estimated $1.6 billion in destruction. People don't know what FEMA's going to do. They don't know what the state's going to do. They don't know how much the city's going to do. They talking about ARPA money, RAMS money, all this other money. But most folk, as Pruitt said, are saying, okay, insurance. Are insurance companies going to honor what we're doing, and how do we navigate through this? So this is extremely timely.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we got two people in the studio that look better than everybody else. Except me.
We've had people in the studio that look better than all of us before but they do look extraordinarily better.
I said better
except for that one that kind of ragged me about not pronouncing her name right, but I do know how to say
I said they look better than everybody else but me.
Did you say
missed that? Yes, you missed that.
I missed that cue again. I'm like BJ. I missed that cue.
ladies and gentlemen, we actually have some, I would say, some experts that can help us navigate through these conversations about insurance. We have Kathy Conley Jones,
and
who's also a member of the National African American Insurance Association. National African American Insurance, and I didn't know they really had one until we started having a conversation.
So we're walking in hot cotton up in here.
And
Miss Deshunai Barlowe.
Thank you so much.
And what organization are you with, Miss Deshunai?
Actually, I work for a litigation defense firm.
Oh.
So we are the attorneys for insurance companies.
Are you an attorney?
I am working on my law degree.
Okay, because I was getting ready to say, I didn't know they give law degrees in high school.
You.
Oh, here he goes.
Yes, you were.
Here he
so
goes. So
funny.
then, if she's look like she's in high school,
she gets carded.
I'm 8th grade.
No, you look like you went to school with Moses. I'm just saying, you might not want to go there.
Moses. I
shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry.
Moses.
I'm talking about Moses Johnson.
Okay, Moses Johnson. I knew him. He lived down the street. His house got tore up too.
Boy, it's bad.
I'm youthful.
I heard that.
Yeah.
But ladies, but Pruitt's absolutely right. But yeah, walk us through, because I heard Congressman Josh Hawley say yesterday, based upon concerns that were being raised. Now, I don't know if people have begun to go through the process and getting pushback. And I'm not a big Hawley fan, but he was very adamant yesterday that insurance companies that don't pay out and don't pay out 100% and don't, move immediately, that they're going to subpoena them. And he's been in touch with the insurance companies and all of that. And so you're right, Pruitt, for the congressperson and others to be that forceful about it. I want to hear Pruitt. I want to hear this.
So one thing we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand one big thing, and reason why I'm really, really glad we're having this conversation. We ran some numbers, and post-economic shock in North St. Louis, based on 2023 property values, the generational wealth that can be lost from that property being in its condition and being put back in condition and passed on is $580 million.
Whoa.
$580 million.
Now that's local.
Easy.
We're
That's
talking
generational.
local.
I'm talking North St. Louis.
Oh.
North St. Louis. It's 4,000 by 4,000 units easily. And based on their property values for 2023, if those properties aren't restored, had this not happened, and property values went up and all the other things, generational wealth, $580 million easily. And so we need to talk about two things. One is if somebody's insured and their house, and we won't say underinsured, overinsured, let's just say they insured,
Sure.
and their house was damaged in a storm, what should be the first thing they do?
Well, the first thing they should do is contact the claims department of their company. A lot of times people want to call the agent. That should be the second person. That's your connection. But you want to get in on the ground floor of the claims. So you get that information, and that's extremely important. The second thing you have to do is make sure you have your policy. You've got to know the company you're with. You can't kind of say, well, I'm not quite sure. Is this Allstate? Is this Foremost? Is this MetLife? You need to have all of your information available to you along with the policy number. Even if you don't have the policy number, if you call the company, the company, get that right. You give them your date of birth. You give them your name and your address, your zip code. Through their database, they can find you. Okay, so those are the three. Those are the most important things to get the process started. The next part of that is you've got to understand what you bought. Most people buy insurance. I don't care if it's home, since we're talking about homeowners, but I'd also like to make sure we include business owners because this is major. Okay,
Yes.
You need to know what you bought. And a lot of times we buy insurance based upon money, how much it's going to cost me. I will tell you that it is always important that you cover the need that you have. You've got to protect what matters most to you. That's my saying. I've been saying that for 4 decades. But you have to ensure that what you bought, it will pay out what you expect. Okay?
Right.
That's important. What you bought will pay out what you expect. It doesn't happen at the end, it happens at the beginning. So it is important that you are working with a broker or an agent, someone, and sometimes going online and everybody's going online and buying things. You don't understand. Most people don't understand insurance, right? You don't understand
Well,
all
they see it
the
on television.
Exactly. So it's important that you are educated. Would you go to a doctor who had not gone to school? Because they say, hey, I'll talk to you online, but you don't know they're a doctor. So those are some items and areas that you definitely should take close attention to. And before you start, because what I find a lot of people will start immediately saying, they'll go to the legal side. Oh, this is what they're supposed to do. This is what you have to do. Everything that the insurance company is supposed to do is in your contract. It is a legally binding contract. Now, that's where you have to have an understanding, and you need to have someone who's your advocate, because just because it's in there doesn't always mean that the insurance company is going to live up to what it says. So you have to know what's in there. You have to know how to push or to have an advocate for yourself.
Absolutely.
Deshunai?
Yeah, of course. I want to chime in here.
Hold on 1 minute, Deshunai. We're going to go to a quick break. We'll be right back with more on Point Black, and Deshunai is going to come back and she's going to tell us how we're going to litigate everybody.
And I want to hear more about that advocate part.
Advocate.
And we are back.
Yes, we are. And what else are we proving?
We're still black. We're still black.
According usually it says it, so I just wanted to kind of
We're
move
still,
in there.
but I'm moving.
Okay.
It's a moving black. Deshunai, you were telling us.
Yes. I just wanted to chime in a little bit about once you are going through the claim process. So the first thing you do want to do is make sure that you are documenting. Documenting is imperative when you're submitting a claim to the insurance company. A lot of times people don't realize that if they're not adding or giving adequate information, then it's easy for them to deny you a claim. Now remember that once you submit a claim, the insurance company has 10 days to acknowledge and respond to that initial claim that has been submitted.
Okay.
Then once that's
Say it again. They got how much time?
10 days. They have 10 days.
They have to respond within 10 days.
They have to respond within 10 days after the claim has been submitted. From that point forward, they have 15 days to inform you if you have been approved for the coverage or denied. Now, once you find out that information, then next steps would be to determine what your policy will allow you to recover. So it's important for people to know their policy limits as well.
Right.
Definitely.
And like you said, it's interesting because and I'll go back to Holly, and I probably won't say his name ever again. But when Holly says immediately, I think people need to understand what immediately means.
Yes.
Because like I said, we get the sound bites out there and we hear the words, but so immediately means that they have within 10 days they have to respond. And then within 15 days, they have to let you know the disposition of it. Are we approved? Are we denied? And what does that look like?
Correct.
Okay, Pruitt, look at you. This is good information.
Yeah. So here's my question is, so of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you are in a neighborhood, we're going to the redlining now. If you live in a neighborhood where the insurance companies have deemed that this is an area they do not want to give insure policy in, what they have, what they call in Missouri and across the country, what they call the FAIR Plan.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, the FAIR Plan is the same insurance companies who denied you. They just get together and pool their stuff together and pool their resources together, and then they will insure you under the FAIR Plan. But can we dig into what you really get in the FAIR Plan?
Before we do that,
okay,
I want to give a bit of history about the FAIR Plan.
Oh, great.
For those of you who don't know where the FAIR Plan actually started was in New York City. There was a woman named Miss Proco. She was an African-American woman who owned an insurance company. This is in New York. We're talking about 1953.
Oh, wow.
What she was encountering was in Harlem. You had like the creme de la creme, right, of the African Americans. You had doctors, lawyers, you had everyone. But they were always being denied to have access to insurance because insurance basically protects your assets. So whatever you've put in and whatever you've grown, you want to insure that.
Right.
So Miss Ernesta Proco knew that the companies kept denying coverage. And that meant that if your practice burned, if you're an attorney or if you're a doctor, you had no way to recoup anything. So Ms. Proco was a strong Democrat, but she went to Governor Rockefeller, who was a Republican, and she told him that, do you understand the amount of money that we have in our community? No, I know you don't. But I'm going to tell you. And she said, a problem is the standard insurance companies will not insure my people. Right. He looked into it. She had all of her numbers. She had all the information. And she said, this has to change. After no more than about 3 weeks, she presented everything to Governor Rockefeller. He took it to the state reps, the Senate. Within 3 weeks, they developed the FAIR Plan. The FAIR Plan said for those entities, businesses, and homeowners who could not basically get coverage through the standard markets, and we'll talk about that kind of stuff later. But you need to be able to get this. There was nothing wrong with their credit. It was nothing wrong with their financial standing. Right. It was nothing wrong with their morals, because they'll also check that as well. But because of Miss Ernesta Proco, we have the FAIR Plan. It started in New York, and it started to go across the country.
Out of Harlem. Interesting. I didn't know that.
Of course. Miss Deshunai. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking to Miss Kathy Conley Jones and Miss Deshunai Barlowe. They're here to talk to us about insurance, but we're not talking about typical insurance. We're talking about, here we are in the midst of a disaster, one of the biggest known to St. Louis, over a $1.6 billion in damage, 5 lives lost, countless numbers injured, over 5,000 buildings damaged, and Pruitt had the good sense, that's my guy, he had the good sense to say, listen, we need to talk about something timely. I wanted to go back, though, to this advocate part, though, because, when
Conley Jones.
I thought I said Conley Jones. I'm sorry if I didn't. I should have. I should have said
I
Miss
just
Kathleen,
heard you say Conley, so I thought I'd help
Conley
you out.
Jones. I should have said if I didn't. Now, see, how come I got Deshunai right, but I got that? Pruitt, help me out.
And listen, BJ won't let me work with the board, so I don't. I'm
interested though in this advocacy piece, because when we hear that word, so we think NAACP, obviously. We think other organizations, nonprofits, even sometime the church. But when we talk about insurance, people who don't understand, people who are trying to maneuver through this, and especially in a time like this where we're talking disaster, and so nobody's thinking, and you're talking about their policy. The policy was in the house. Mm-hmm. So tell us, how do you envision that? What does that look like?
Well, did you want to take the advocacy part?
I can just chime in a little bit on that. If you lost your policy in the house, you can always call the insurance company to receive a copy of your policy. Now, if you do not understand your policy, you need to contact the Missouri Department of Insurance. They will help you understand any and everything that's in your policy. Generally, when these type of disasters happen, in the peril section, it'll identify what things are covered. And so it's important for people to know that as well. But Kathy, I'll let you take it.
Okay, sure. I'm going to take it to what I call reality.
Okay.
My house, my roof just fell in, not mine, but I'm speaking of this. Right. At that point, there's an emotional response. Right. My God, my roof fell in. You're not going to really talk to the Department of Insurance, because they're not going to help you. They're going to help you. What they will say, contact your agent or contact the insurance company. So what I want people to know is that you need to always be prepared. When you buy a policy, insurance is the only thing you buy. What you can't buy it when you need it most. It is the only thing. So if someone called me tomorrow and said, "Hey, my roof basically fell over or was blown off, I'd like to buy a policy," you can't buy it.
Right.
You have to buy it before the risk occurs.
That's correct.
And a policy basically is covering different risks. When Janae said perils, most people don't know what a peril is. Right. They're like, what is that? A peril is what could happen. What could possibly happen? A flood, fire, tornado, wind and hail, sewer backup. All of those things are perils. Somebody broke into your house. Something happened. That's a peril. So when you want to always understand when you buy it originally, because you're in the midst of the fight right now,
right? And
you really you're emotionally upset. Yes. So what you want to find out is, first of all, what caused the loss? Number one, okay, it was a tornado. Second, what else happened? Well, it took off my roof. What else happened? You have contents coverage. So you've got property coverage. That's the building. Contents coverage, that's what's inside the building. You may also have some other things going on, right? Maybe you had property that was in the care of someone, I should say, it was in your care, but it was the property of others. Janae came over. She gave me several different of her beautiful bags, and I had them in my house.
Right.
the house went down.
I'm selling those bags. I'm just telling you.
He's going to
She's
tell
going-
you.
she's
oh,
going
they
to-
were in the
She got
house.
some Gucci bags.
She's going to say to me,
He's not going
where-
to do that, y'all. He's just joking.
she's
He's
going to
not
say, where are my beautiful bags? I gave you 10 bags to hold for me under your care. That's a liability. So now I have to know the different areas. So here we are. Roof is off. I don't call the Missouri Department of Insurance at this point. They changed the name now. It's Commerce, Insurance and Commerce. It's no longer called that. But what you want to do is you call that claims number. You call your broker or your agent because they usually have your information. You know who they are. Call them. And then you say, here is what's happening. Just like she said, you need to make sure that you detail and document. Take pictures. I know you're upset. Take pictures. It's important.
I'm glad you said that because I was talking to somebody the other day and they were talking about damages and they were saying, well, somebody told me don't clean up all of this stuff. Wait till the insurance company come there and take a look at it and then clean it up. And I'm like, no, take pictures and then clean the stuff up.
Absolutely.
So can you, or you should you, your house is laying there, the tree laying on your house. You saying to me, I can't pick it up unless that's not true.
I just heard the same thing yesterday from somebody who said, well, you know, we're going to pick up some stuff, but when they come, we want them to see the damage. And then someone else, as Pruitt said, no, but wait a minute. Take the pictures, document it, make sure you document it appropriately. Because if you leave it down there, if somebody gets hurt while somebody else gets hurt.
That's a separate liability.
Right. Okay, so I'm glad you said that. I know you're listening. I know you're listening. You know who you are. So I mean,
but
go
you
ahead.
can't women. But they again, long as they take pictures and stuff, they can clean up their property, right?
I would say yes, you can clean up the property, but it's imperative for you to make sure that you are documenting every single item you have in your house. If you are going to temporarily repair these things that have been damaged in the loss, then you need to make sure that you're having receipts for that as well, because all of this is needed in order for you to regain that coverage back from your insurance company.
Right. And
Let me add one more piece to that. Start the claims process.
Yes.
You see, once you start the claims process, you make that call
Immediately.
and you say, this is what's happened, you're going to get a claim number. One of the things that they're going to ask you is, was anyone hurt? That's a part of your policy because most policies have what's called a medical coverage.
Yes.
Okay. So was anyone hurt? Okay, no one was hurt. All right, next. What happened? That's the peril or that's the risk of what just occurred. What was the loss? A tornado came through, it blew off my roof. Okay. Anything else? I have severe water damage. I have all of these things. My grandmother's wonderful jewelry and stuff fell on the floor. All kinds of things. So you are giving them a detailed overview of what's happened in your house. They're taking this down. Now, after they start this, they're going to give you a claim number, which means that you have let them start this process. Once that's done, now you can start you need to clean up because you might have might be glass. There's all kinds of things.
Yeah, right.
Don't leave it out there.
Yeah.
Definitely
That's where the
anything that's
pictures
harmful,
come in,
yes.
right?
yeah.
So it's critical you take those pictures because they will go back to their record and say, oh, she called in at 12:15 p.m. She said these are the things that happened. They know that there are other things that may happen. Like maybe you didn't know that the side of your building had also come off, right? Because you're in an emotional state. But you start the claim process first.
Got it.
That makes sense.
Now, Daryl, one thing I want to share, and this one is this is more, I think this is going to be more critical than anything because it came up once, and then, we got a good research guy who did some research because I couldn't remember all the details. But BJ,
I was going to say, BJ.
think about this, BJ. Your house, you have a damage to your house, and the insurance company is going to issue you a check. And they issued a check in your name and the city of St. Louis's name because you're in the city. and you both are joint. Yes.
Okay, back
and the
up. Wait
city
a
has to
minute.
sign
Now, wait
off.
a minute.
The city has to
He's
sign-
creating a real issue
And the
here
city has to
versus
sign
us
off
staying
on-
on
The
court.
city is on your insurance policy?
No.
No, wait a minute. I'm going to jump in because now he's creating it. You know, the guy in the barber shop that creates issues, even though everybody's moving on one point, he's jumping in on something else.
No,
but
no,
that's
no,
on
no.
the code
No, no.
issue.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
on
no,
a
I'm
code
getting
issue.
to it, but I'm getting to it. But my point is, I own my house.
Right.
I got insurance policy.
Right.
The insurance is going to pay off, but now they now for some reason, and this is just as far as I know, this is an ordinance just in the city of St. Louis.
You got to change that.
But it says in the city of St. Louis, a homeowner may receive an insurance payout check that includes the city as a joint payee under specific circumstances. This typically occurs when the city has a vested interest in ensuring that the insurance funds are used to repair or rebuild a property, especially if the property has been damaged or destroyed. Common scenarios where the city is a joint payee is mortgage and lien holder interest if the city holds a lien on the property, or perhaps due to unpaid taxes, or guess what else? Code enforcement actions. It may be listed as a joint payee to protect its financial interests. Code enforcement and public safety when a property is deemed unsafe or in violation of building codes, the city may require the insurance proceeds be used to bring the property up to code. By being a joint payee, the city can ensure that funds are allocated appropriately. So your house has been damaged by a tornado.
Now, wait. Now, I'm going to stop
And this has
you.
happened.
I know that.
And
I'm
this
going to
has
stop
happened.
you because what a lot of people that might be listening to this just heard was the city is going to take my proceeds. That's not exactly correct. Unless, now, it's always that unless you happen to fall in a particular scenario.
Right.
So before we go there, because that's sort of the extension, we're talking about the folks who just lost their roof. They've been paying their mortgage. They've been paying their insurance. All of that has been done because that insurance was escrowed in their mortgage. And now they've got an issue. The city of St. Louis is not going to take your property at the moment.
We didn't say, wait a minute, no, let's be clear.
Now, wait a minute.
No, hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. We got a complaint. Lady's house caught fire.
Okay.
They needed to do some repairs. She had an insurance company give her a check. It was issued to her and the city.
That's true.
She had no idea that the insurance company was going to do that. And the city would not sign off unless she came up with the rest of the money it was going to take to fix her house.
I got
She
you.
had no idea about it. This is just a fire. In this case, we got hundreds of people in the city of St. Louis with property that the city is going to go by and deem. And the city, the mayor's talking about it. They got all of the code enforcement people walking across North St. Louis, looking at buildings and determining whether there's code violations, the extent of damages, and this and that. All I'm saying is people need to be aware and talk to the
That
insurance
could
company
happen.
that hey,
Okay.
I've got damages, and of course my damages are going to be a code violation.
Okay.
I want to make sure if you're going to issue me a check, if you're going to issue it in my name in the city of St. Louis, I need to know that now. You need to ask about that. You need to know that now because like that lady who I'm talking about that filed a complaint, she didn't know till they gave her a check that had her and the city on it. And the city would not sign off on it unless she had enough money to do all the repairs because she was underinsured, which takes us to the next part of the conversation about the underinsured.
Well, let me ask you this
Go
question
ahead.
before you get off of that, though. But in a case like that, is there an opportunity, I guess, to negotiate and say to the city, well, okay, listen, I'll sign off on this. You take it and just pay me the. Don't do it. I mean, I'm just asking because people will ask that question.
No.
So I want to make sure that the experts.
Absolutely. But here's
y'all tell folks, don't
going
do
to,
it.
I'm going to step away from that particular scenario just for a second. I want to go to probably what maybe 90% of the people are going to encounter. Let's say that you've got individuals who they have a mortgage on their home, right? On that insurance, it doesn't just say it's Joe Schmo or Mr. and Mrs. Schmo. It says Joe Schmo, and the additional insured is Landmark Bank.
Right.
All right, I know it's no landmark bank anymore,
says loan.
but it says that. Now, why is that on there? It's because the company that loaned you the money to buy that property has to ensure that they're indemnified in the event. You can't just take this money and go run off with it because there's still a mortgage.
Right.
So for individuals, and this is something critical because someone called me about this this morning. They sent me some information. There was an individual who not only lost the roof, the whole side of the building, everything, right? I said, send me a copy of your policy. I didn't write it, but I always help out if I can.
You're an advocate.
So
Definitely.
when she sent it to me, I looked at the company. I said, okay, it's a reputable company. And I looked at the insured dwelling value.
Yes.
The dwelling value was $80,000. Okay. They had already told me, the family said, oh, this is what I want to do. We're going to rebuild and blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, just hold the phone. Let's find out what your coverage is. So she had a dwelling policy that had, or the dwelling was covered for $80,000. Usually your contents are covered for 50% of whatever your dwelling is. So the house falls apart, everything inside, she's got $40,000 of coverage, right? But she has a mortgage. This is what people are going to be screaming about and being very upset about. But you've got to pay the piper. You got to pay the person that covered you.
Right.
So let's say that your mortgage balance is $40,000. They go through everything. They say, okay, you've got $80,000. Maybe that's what you have. And it depends on her policy said actual cash value. I would never sell anybody an actual cash value policy. Actual cash value means, where are the receipts? What have you seen? We don't have time to be doing this. I'm in an emotional state. I'm losing my house.
Right.
Actual cash value does not always help you. Very, very rarely. Replacement cost does. Replacement cost says if this house goes down, blows up, whatever, I want to receive the funds to replace this. She had actual cash value. That's kind of the first X. Most people don't understand that.
Right.
The other part is I've got let's just say it was 80,000. She's going to get the 40,000. If I owe 40,000 to the mortgage company, it's going to say to Joe Schmo and Landmark Bank.
Right.
So in order for you to get this money, both of you have to sign off. Landmark's going to say, if you've lost your home, you have to pay the full balance. You have to pay the full amount. $40,000 is what you owe. They say, wait a minute. So out of your 80, you're only going to get 40.
Right.
And then you've got a 40,000 for your own contents, right? So now all you've got is $80,000. Can you rebuild?
Freeze right there. We're going to take another quick break. We're going to be right back, and we're going to talk cash value. Daryl, I want cash value for the show, so I need to talk to iHeart. BJ,
First of all, this show is valid.
put me in touch, BJ. We'll be right back. More on Point Blank. And we're back.
Yes, we are.
And Daryl's at least still black.
I won't even go there. I tell you what, man. Listen, there's some dark days out there. We are black, and there's some dark days going on right now, dog. Some dark days.
I'm
and
Egyptian.
We're still on with Miss Kathy Conley Jones and Miss Deshunai Barlowe. Pruitt, I'm telling you, great information.
No, Deshunai. I'm gonna put it this way.
Okay.
Do I have to fight my insurance company to get what's owed to me?
We don't want you guys to fight us. We want to help
Okay.
you guys get what you need. However, I will say that
Oh,
it
Lord,
can
when
be
somebody says however, I say,
it can be a little challenging.
no, you just lost
I
me
mean,
when you said however.
So what are the slippery slopes
Yes.
that people who are insured and their home been damaged by a tornado? What's the slippery slopes, or if there are any, that they need to look out for, as relates to their insurance company talking to them?
I think what you say to the insurance companies is critical, right? You definitely want to keep things short. Emails are preferred rather than phone calls. It's imperative that people, when they're filing claims, that they're I can't stress enough how much documentation is important because, and I want people to know this as well. I'm not telling you to go sue your insurance companies.
Sure.
Absolutely not. But you do have a right to, for any instance where you are denied coverage, you have 5 years to file a suit against your insurance company.
Up to 5 years.
Yes. And that is in terms of bad faith or a vexatious refusal to pay. So people should definitely be aware that they have those options.
So, but let me ask you this then, going back just real quick. So when a Josh Hawley, I did say I wasn't going to say his name again, but hey, what can I say? So when he says publicly, I've been in touch with the insurance companies, telling them to pay out. If you don't, the government will subpoena you. Because you're talking about suing. Because first of all, if I've lost everything, how am I going to sue? I guess some civil litigating attorney will do it through what you call it when they get paid, when you get paid.
Yeah, contingency.
Yeah. So is that generally the way that folk would go through contingency? But the government here said we'll subpoena you. Is that part of the advocacy, Ms. Kathy, that we talk about in helping people to maneuver and manage through this, particularly in these?
Well, first of
times?
all, you've got to put the two different I'm going to say parties. Okay. There are agents. Agents work for an insurance company.
Okay.
So if you're State Farm, if you're Allstate, if you're Geico, you're working for the company, right? Because that's who pays you.
Right.
If you're a broker, you work for your client because you look at a number of different companies. It's not just one. So I could come to you and say, well, I think this is the best property coverage for you, your homeowners, but maybe you need earthquake. I'm not going to write the earthquake with the same company. So it's all about sort of putting together almost like a patchwork quilt so that we can cover you, all right? So that's the first thing. Now, not saying that person that is an agent is unscrupulous or anything else, but they have limits of what they can do because that's who their employer is. So they can't fight. I can be a junkyard dog. I don't
you're a
care.
broker.
That is correct.
I'm a broker.
Right.
Yes,
I'm a broker.
So I want to point out that brokers have fiduciary. They must act in a fiduciary responsibility on behalf of the client because that is who they represent.
Right.
Now, the agents, like Kathy said, they advocate for the insurance companies. So it's definitely very important that you reach out to your broker as well.
So, Marcus,
And can I just bring some, because that's a perfect segue to this. Because I think most individuals are thinking maybe, what if I'm not being treated fairly? What if I'm not getting the amount that I need? One of the things that you can always look into is an independent adjuster.
Yes.
Okay. Every insurance company sends out an adjuster. So when you make that claim, they take your information. They say, we're going to send out an adjuster. That's the person who's going to do the full scope, come up with what they think it should be, and here's the number. Now, who
determines whether or not I'm sorry for interrupting you, but who determines whether or not the independent adjuster, can you ask for that? Or is that
not
automatic?
Normally. No, not normally. Your insurance company has adjusters.
Right.
So they're going to send out their adjuster.
But they're not independent.
That's their adjuster.
Right.
Okay. So they're representing that particular company.
Right.
What we are talking about is if you feel that they're going to write you, they say, oh, you know what, we think we'd like to settle this for $150,000. You're like, are you crazy? This should be $300 or something. Before you start, because you don't really have the knowledge, you get an independent adjuster to come out. You pay for them, okay? Pay for them. They will, and they are very skilled and very well knowledgeable in what should be covered.
Yes.
Now you are able to not only advocate for yourself, but you just had someone who gave you documentation that said, we reviewed this particular loss, and this is what we think. Now you're at a different point.
So here's my concern, and that's why I'm going all the way back to this other stuff, because when you get south of, say, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm ready to get real prejudicial. When you get south of, say, Page,
Okay.
most of those folks are probably insured
Yeah.
because they good chance they have a mortgage, and mortgage don't require that they have some sort of insurance.
That's
So
fair.
more likely they are insured. But as you go further north, you're going to have people who may be less insured, especially a multi-family guy owns a 2-family flat, he's renting it out. They may not be insured, but you also may have people who inherit the house from their mothers,
That's what they call
or their
inherit.
grandmothers or whatever, and it's paid for.
It's paid for.
There's no mortgage. These houses
Right.
are paid for. They own them. And so that's why my concern was about this thing, about this joint check and fixing it up, because they may not be insured, or they may be underinsured, or they may be properly insured, but we need to just make sure that they get treated fairly. And my biggest concern is that, I mean, when we were having this debate about PACE financing, and the state legislature changed it to where in order to get a PACE loan, it used to be the value was based on the appraisal. So a guy come out there and appraise your building and says, oh, this is an $80,000 house here on Natural Bridge in Newstead. PACE can lend against that. Where the legislature changed it, where they said, no, your value is determined by the city's assessment. And the city's assessment says, no, that ain't an $80,000 house over here on Natural Bridge. It's a $40,000 house. You understand what I'm getting? Now all of a sudden, that's what we talking about, that generational wealth. Because now all of a sudden the city, you're losing the value in that house. And even if you are insured, is the insurance company going to look at the city's assessment for the neighborhood, or are they going to use or can you have an appraisal come out there? Because my question is, if they had to replace it, what are they going to look at? And some of those houses, and some of those houses are very small, 600, 700, 6,000.
Square feet.
Yeah, 700 square feet, like in the Ville neighborhoods. Some of those are small houses.
Right.
They're very small. And so insurance company come in and say, well, that house is only worth whatever. That's my biggest concern.
That's when you need that independent adjuster.
Gotcha.
Because at that point, and that's the critical point. And like you said, the three different areas: the insured, the underinsured, and the non-insured.
Right.
Just- those are the
Uninsured.
people. A lot of time you have heir owners. And heir owners, your grandma died, she left you the house.
Right.
You didn't even think about getting insurance on the house, but you've got someone in the house renting, and you didn't ask the people in the house to make sure that they purchased renter's insurance. So in order to live here,
Right.
you need to have renter's insurance, because it's going to protect not only any liability. If they're upstairs and their kid turns the water on and it ruins your building, you want to be able to recoup that, right? So there's segments and sections that we need to do. But when it comes to an uninsured, it's definitely something that is important, but I think that's going to hurt our city more than anything.
Well,
Yes.
BJ, we're gonna have to wrap up, and so we're gonna let the ladies. Any parting words you got for our listeners?
I don't. Besides, just make sure that you definitely reach out to your broker, and if you have access to anyone who's in the legal field, I would definitely recommend that as well. So,
Got you.
My parting words is, first of all, I'm happy to have this conversation, because this is my industry, insurance, and it's about protecting. I want to make sure that my people, those black folks, brown people,
Say
those
that.
friends,
Say that.
that they understand what is at stake. And I hope that the city understands, because what happens, those people that are insured south of Page,
Right.
what happens if their buildings can't be restored?
That's right.
They can take their money and leave the city. There goes your tax dollars.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So it's very important that we look at this holistically.
yes.
We can't just say north and south, because south is going to be, and I mean south of Page at this
Right.
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 they could be the ones that say, I don't want a 4,500 square foot home. I'm going to take my money and go someplace else.
Go live with my
And that
grandchildren.
leaves what I call the haves and the have-nots.
Got it.
What's the organization again? The national organization again? What's the name of it again? The insurance company, because we got to wrap it up.
National Association of African American
We
Insurers.
got to wrap it up. I wanted to make sure we knew that because we need advocates. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Point Black.
BJ, I thought you was going to take off.
Yeah.